And if it's all right, I'd like to be the one who interviews you.
All right.
Okay, fantastic. He said yes, so.
Let's do it.
So Wufoo, I think most people probably know you as a YC partner. You've been traveling to Asia quite a bit recently the past few years. But Wufoo itself is kind of what even started the relationship with YC. Wufoo was originally a YC company. So what was that? What is the company that you created?
So Wufoo was an online form builder. It helps you create online surveys. You can use it for like event registrations and also process simple online payments. And we were in the winter 2006 batch. It was the second ever batch for Y Combinator, the first one out in California.
Okay, and so what made you think that this was a service that should be created? Why did you choose that one?
Paradoxically, usually people like to work on startup ideas that are like stuff that they really love to do. Ours started in the opposite direction. We hated making forms and surveys for other people. We used to, me and my co-founders worked in the research department of a university down in Florida. And we were tasked with building all this stuff for the different scientists that were doing research at the university, and we were like, oh, it would be nice if they just built it themselves. Like, this thing is super tedious. And it turns out there's a lot of people who do that. So for us, it was a mix of being lazy and also hating this process. And it was like, let me write some code to have people do it themselves. That being said, even though we had the idea, we couldn't execute it right away. We didn't have enough money. So the first plan was not to do Y Combinator, because Y Combinator didn't really exist when we first had heard about it, and it had only done one batch, and we just heard about it way too late, and we're like, oh, well, no one knew they were going to do it again. So what we did was we actually did nothing at the beginning. We just had the idea, and then we went to a conference not unlike this, South by Southwest in Austin. My parents had a house there, and so we could go for really cheap. And my co-founder saw this session by Jason Fried. It's called Doing Big Things with Small Teams. And it changed our life, because we just heard his advice, and he didn't seem very special as a person, and he was really down to earth with his advice. He didn't say there was any secrets and stuff. It was a lot of hard work, but his strategy was really simple, and everyone that we looked around the room at were like, these people aren't any better than us. And his first piece of advice was build an audience first. So we went home and we registered a domain name called particletree.com, and we started blogging, because we didn't know shit about making startups. So we were like, all right, we got to learn design, we got to learn programming, and we got to learn about entrepreneurship and business stuff. And that's what we blogged about. And then we built that up to an audience of about 100,000 readers. And at that point, we're like, oh, okay, maybe we can start working on this startup thing. We have an audience, it seems like, but we still didn't have money to do it. The three of us didn't have enough put in savings. And so the plan at that point was that Chris realized that the two more essential people of the team that could build out the first version of this idea is probably going to be Ryan and I. And to make money to do the software, we decided that since we were good at this publishing stuff, that we would start making a magazine. We'd sell that, we would work on it for 2 weeks out of the month, and then the other 2 weeks we'd program. And so even to get to that step, we didn't have enough money saved. So Chris said, I will split my paycheck between the three of us. You two quit your jobs, and we make this magazine work. Give out that first issue for free, and hopefully we make enough money with the magazine that I can finally quit my job. So when Y Combinator opened up the Winter 26 session, we were 1 month into that plan. We released out the first issue of the magazine, and we were starting selling 6-month subscriptions. And
so you're 1 month into that plan, but since you and Chris and Ryan, right? Chris and Ryan Campbell, since the three of you had started, how long had that been? Since you first said, we're no worse than anyone else, we can do it as well?
Let me think here. So South by Southwest, that was 2005. And then we blogged on there for almost a year and a half that we built up that audience. Now it was nights and weekends, writing these long articles and stuff that nobody was paying us for.
So what I'm interested in, the reason why I asked that is, this is, to me, seems like a very unique founder situation, because it's two brothers, and then it's yourself as well, and there's no cash. There's a lot of...
I don't think that's unique. I think there's a lot of founders out here who's like, I got no cash.
Yeah, definitely a lot of people without cash, but the idea of a brother-brother combo and then yourself, I'm wondering, does that create tension as you learn, okay, we have to pivot here, we have to switch this there, before you can really see where it's going to start to take off? How do you ride out such a lean time and still keep that bond as founders?
So I'd known Chris and Ryan before we started Particle Tree for another year and a half before we actually started going on this journey. And obviously they'd known each other the whole life. And I can see how some people think, like, aren't they going to gang up on you on decision stuff? But they come from this family where their father is like a DEA agent, does forensic accounting, so high level of integrity has been instilled upon them.
Okay.
And so I never felt like when dealing with them that they were not being fair to me or being honest about stuff.
Right.
Actually, we had split the equity equal ways between the three of us, which is super rare back in 2006. Usually it's like one person's going to be the lead and all set up, and Y Combinator at the time had no firm feelings about like how equity should be split amongst founders.
So do you think that sort of special bond, do you think that's what helped you get selected by Y Combinator? Like, why do you think that Wufoo made it through all the other competition?
So we actually, we only had the magazine. We hadn't written a single line of code. We hadn't even executed this, like Chris hadn't quit his job yet. And so when we applied to Y Combinator, they are only giving out $18,000 at the time. So it's not the 120 that we give today. And so unlike a lot of companies that apply to YC today, we needed that money. We're like, God damn it, this is the only way we're going to write this code full time. And so when we applied, Paul Graham had actually read Particle Tree, our blog.
Oh, wow.
And then he saw the magazine. And so to him, he was like, these three guys work together. They're making a company no matter what. I mean, one guy is splitting his paycheck 3 ways, and that doesn't happen very often. And so to him, he was like, I'm investing in this team, right? I don't know if they can build this app or whatever, but I know they're going to work hard and have something built.
I see. And so that sort of approach, just going at it no matter what, that seems to be also in the Wufoo culture, because I read that you had a very, very strong dedication to customer service, and that almost every employee would send handwritten letters to clients thanking them for using the service. And so that sort of, just dedication to doing things the right way is very, very impressive. But my question is, how do you translate that into getting the clients in the first place? Because you guys had some big clients. You had Disney, you had a couple other huge names. So how do you get people in the door in the first place? Afterwards, of course, you'll treat them very nicely, but you still need them to shake your hand.
Yeah, so here's my philosophy behind like doing any kind of B2B sales and enterprise stuff. Like the first 4 years of Wufoo, we grew solely by word of mouth. We didn't pay for advertising or marketing. We didn't have a guy going out there doing sales or anything like that. Like Wufoo had this one viral mechanism, which is like if you're on the free plan, when you finish filling out the form or survey, it would show that it was powered by Wufoo on the confirmation page. And then we had a good percentage of users who would come to us just from other people on there. The other trick was that iframe technology wasn't really taking advantage that much at the time, so we allowed people to embed forms onto their actual websites. And so we got tons of traffic and tons of interesting SEO actually as a result of that. But the main thing is that we tried to be as human as possible. Like the app has a personality to it, it has a tone and a language and a character. The way we talk to our users, when we did customer support or what have you. Like the people who buy and use software, they're human beings, right? They're not faceless entities, corporations, bureaucracies, right? And so all we had to do was get someone to be a super fan of our product. And we had a jump start because we had like 100,000 developers and entrepreneurs, people who were starting businesses, people who were building stuff or being in IT departments who were frustrated by like a bunch of secretaries. And they were the ideal people to be our champions in these organizations. And then they're the ones that slowly spread Wufoo outwards. And so as long as we were able to get one champion out there, all we had to do was like make them look awesome. And so some of the things that we would do is that they would come to us and it's like, we really love Wufoo, we want to have this used in the organization, but I need to get through this process. Like, do you have any tips or how we can do that, or how you worked with other companies? And we're like, I don't know. What do you need? And he was like, I think I need to make a presentation to like the board or to different guys. It's like, okay, we'll make you a deck. So we make him like a super awesome deck and stuff and give it to him and just do everything we can to make him look special and awesome. And then we'd tell him like, hey, tell him that you negotiated like a 20% off on the deal. It doesn't cost us anything, and we don't really give specials or deals on that stuff. But like to him, it was just like, just tell him that you did it. I'm just giving it to you right now. I know you didn't do it, but like, we're fine if it makes you look good. And so that's a lot of what we did, was make the people who are champions look awesome. And as a result, they're willing to go the distance in terms of getting Wufoo used.
I see. So is that sort of behavior that your competitors were also taking? Because I imagine that online surveys, there's going to be some other players out there. And so how did you navigate that potential minefield?
I don't know what our competitors are doing. Try not to spend too much time on that stuff. I know, here's the thing. For straight up B2B, like service-oriented companies, it's not a zero-sum game. Like, in order for you to win or do well doesn't mean someone else has to lose. The only situation is in marketplaces. And that situation, those kinds of startups, they have a different rules that they sort of play. And so you have to think differently about them. But Wufoo wasn't a marketplace, right? It's straightforward, like, I'm going to do a good job, and you're going to pay me for my services as a result. And so for us, it meant that we didn't have to think of our competitors as the enemies. Like, our goal for customer support, for instance, was to do whatever it took to make the users happy. And that meant recommending our competitors. So we would oftentimes, people would ask us for feature requests, and that was the number one thing we'd always say is like, no, we're not going to be doing that. And we'd always have a good reason why, or tell them about timetables or whatever, but we tried to usually like under-promise and over-deliver. And so if there was a feature that Wufoo didn't have that our competitors did, we would gladly tell them, it's like, hey, you should go over to FormStack. You should go over the FormString or what have you. You should go over to SurveyMonkey. They have that feature. We know their team, and they're really good guys. We ultimately want you to get what you need. Now, if you're interested, if we ever build out that feature, do you mind if we add you to, would you like to be added to a mailing list on our end? And when we add it on there, we'll let you know. 97% of users that we would send that out to never switched, right? To them, that was like spectacular. That's all the answer they sort of needed. And we ended up generating these awesome lead lists every time we'd implement and build new stuff. That was heavily targeted at the people that needed those features. And that was all out of this attitude that is like, I don't have to focus all completely on my competitors and trying to destroy them, but ultimately like helping my users. And I think that helps you get growth and revenues and goodwill far more than like being combative.
So in your situation, I understand how that worked, and obviously it worked very well. But there's definitely other situations where there's you and there's me, and one of us is going to die, and one of us is going to live. How would you recommend a startup think about their competitors in that situation? Because it's like a gorilla in the corner, and you can't ignore it.
So I mentioned it's marketplaces. That's the one that's a little bit different. And usually in a marketplace play, usually only one marketplace is going to win in that case. And so you're seeing this sort of pretty vicious battle happening on in like ride sharing with Uber and Lyft and Sidecar and all of them. Marketplace plays are, I don't know. Having not run one myself, I don't know the full strategies behind them, but the way we think about them at YC and what I advise startups is basically marketplaces in and of itself is extremely difficult because you're not working on like one side of the solution. You have to work on two different sides of acquisition. And so like it's multiply difficult. So usually I say figure out which side is the easy side, the supply side or the demand side, solve that really quickly, and then ultimately you spend all your time like acquiring and figuring out the other side. The best marketplace plays are the ones where it's supply constrained. So Airbnb is a classic example of a supply constrained marketplace. And so in their case, it's like there's tons of demand out there because like everybody wants a cheaper way and a better way to like stay somewhere awesome when they travel and go on vacation. Problem is there was no supply for it. So if they can manifest it, it makes it work. So like what you're being vicious at is like, how do I acquire supply better than anyone else? And usually, like when you're getting supply and it's other people, usually it's going to be this sort of value play where it's like, how can I be better to those people who are giving me supply than anybody else?
So when you're trying to create that value, do you think there's a line that startups shouldn't cross? Is there a moral line that you shouldn't go past? Like obviously that's going to be different for different companies and different potential techniques. But one way of thinking about it is that, you know, if I don't take this step, this other company wins, and my company's done. Eventually, we're redundant, we're obsolete. But if I do take this step, we win, our investors win, everyone goes home happy. How do you feel about that sort of very gray area?
So that's tricky, and it's very difficult, and it's one of the reasons why I like investing at the seed stage, where I only have like 7% of the company, because right. I'm like, founder, that's where you earn your equity. Good luck with that one.
Right.
But ultimately, here's the thing. YC, we have an ethics policy on stuff like this, and obviously, you know, it's inevitable that we invest in batches where there's competitors within the batch. And so we do our best to like figure those things out by separating them out. We make sure the information isn't passed, and we be as upfront and honest as possible about like what the situation is going to be like. That being said, why Combinator is able to scale because it's something that's Paul Graham did at the very early stages. And that was that, like, he was like, okay, you know what? If I'm going to be investing in startups in batches, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time with them, and I don't like spending time with assholes. So his idea was like, all right, the only people I'm going to invest in are people I want to eat dinner with every single week.
Right.
And it turns out that you can have a room full of people that are really cool, nice, that you want to have dinner with every week, and those people will fund billion-dollar companies, can do really well and succeed in the marketplace. Like YC's numbers and portfolio shows that. And the side effect is that we have this incredible like alumni community of like 2,000 founders that will do anything to help one another out. And I think that's how a lot of them have been able to get successful, especially in the later rounds, and grow as fast as they can. And so my feeling is that like our portfolio strategy is to believe in that model, that like we do far better when we help one another as opposed to when we are fighting tooth and nail against one another.
Right, and you definitely proved that with Wufoo. So speaking about Wufoo again just for a moment, when you look back, this is a really simple question, but it's one I'm really curious to ask. In all your time there, what was your happiest moment?
My happiest moment at Wufoo. So Y Combinator at the when you first join the batch, they give you these gray T-shirts, and it says like "Make something people want," and it has like the YC logo on the back. When we got acquired by SurveyMonkey, they give you these black T-shirts, and it says "I made something people want."
Nice.
And so like, it's one of those things they give out very rarely, and it's one of those things that like we're just super proud to sort of have like the whole story like completed from beginning to end. Like we couldn't have done our startup without them, and like we had something that we felt like we like truly earned.
Are these sweatshirts that you still wear, or are these sweatshirts that just kind of stay in the closet for a special day?
They kind of stay in the closet for a special day. Like
Okay.
I would probably keep that T-shirt for like the rest of my life.
I'm sorry, this is just
Or,
really
like,
fascinating to me. What is that special day? When would you wear this?
I don't know, when I want to rub it in someone's face.
Okay. So, on the flip side, what was something in Wufoo that was the most sad, the most frustrating moment in your time there?
Yeah, so we had one incident where we had data loss at Wufoo, and it affected like 0.001% of our users. But we had up to this point for like, I think 3.5 years, never had an incident and all that stuff. And we're a data, basically, collection company. And so to us, that was like the worst thing we could possibly do. And it was pretty straightforward what we were going to do. We were like, obviously, like we knew this stuff way ahead before our users did. And so we just preemptively figured out all the accounts, found them all, did what we could for recovery, and then let them all know way ahead of time and said, like, this is what it affected. It looks like this is data stuff. Here's the latest backups that we could find for all that stuff. Like, truly sorry, and we apologize. And we thought, like, it was going to be worse than it ever was. But it turns out, like, everyone was just, like, super understanding. It was like, you guys have been, like, awesome, like, every day that I've ever been on this product, and you guys are, like, upfront about this problem that you have, and you're acting worse about this than I ever will. And so, like, no big deal. We love you guys.
So there was no Twitter outrage,
Twitter
no
wasn't really popular
hashtag
back then.
tear down Wufoo.
Nah, we didn't.
That's good.
So, like, but I remember us, we were terrified, and at that point, we, like, changed our ISPs, we changed the guys who were running our servers, like, we did all this crazy stuff. It, like, changed a lot of stuff in terms of, like, the infrastructure things. The thing is, we weren't server guys, we were all application stuff, but AWS and all that stuff didn't exist back then in 2006, so we had to run our own servers, but we didn't have expertise for that, so we had other people manage it for us, and so we realized we needed, like, bigger guns there.
I see. So by the time that you were acquired by SurveyMonkey, how big had the team gotten?
Only 10 people.
So you went from 3 to 10, and if I remember correctly, after YC you took one small round of funding.
Yeah, we raised $100,000 after demo day.
Okay, but from there until acquisition, you never took any more money.
No, I probably rejected several $1 million worth of offers sent to us.
And you were acquired for how much again?
That I can't confirm, but that's easy to find out there.
I see. I think it's 35 million.
So here's the thing about that number or whatever number you sort of find. It was a half cash, half stock deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if you know, if you're up to date on the SurveyMonkey information, like they're so profitable, or our business has been so profitable in forms and surveys that they've been able to raise tender offers or like money from banks instead of having to go like IPO or what have you. And so I believe the stock portion of that deal has quadrupled since the time that we were acquired.
Oh, wow. That's a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
So my question related to that, you go from 118,000 to many, many, many millions, only with 3 to 10 people. So how did you succeed fantastically in a way that many, many companies never can even dream of doing? How did you do all that while staying so lean?
We were profitable. We had a ton of money, so that helps. Here's the thing. We were lucky, right? So if we were in a different kind of business that grew any faster than the way Wufoo was, we might have been forced to have to scale up, right? And we had the luxury of being able to have the time to build internal tools to help us scale out customer support in a way that allowed us to stay small. But also we had very different values as a company, right? Our goal, our image in our mind of what a successful company wasn't have a giant office with a ton of people in there and have an army of people working for us. Ours was to figure out how do we have a really intimate startup that we're really proud of, that we love working on every single day. So culture to us was paramount because we said the way we're going to win this is if we can be in it for the long haul. And that meant preserving passion and energy at all costs. And so if you set that as your highest sort of priority, then everything can sort of work out. And we never took any assumption for granted about how a company should be run. So we didn't say that you had to have an office. We didn't say that you had to work 5 or even 7 days a week. We had a 4.5-day work week sort of schedule. We didn't do meetings like any other company. We did them all on one day. There's a 15-minute rule. If you were to have a meeting with someone else, if you can't resolve an issue, you're immediately stop talking about the thing and then go on to the next items on your to-do list. Because if everyone was remote working, productivity was also paramount. And because we had profit sharing instead of stock options, right? Everyone knew that if we're bringing on another person to the team, it had to be sort of worth it. We had feeling sort of the pain point. So everyone was really cognizant of figuring out how do we work lean? How do we maintain a high level of quality? Because everyone was had the right feedback loops because everyone in the company was doing customer support. And then how do we make our customers ultimately happy? And all that stuff just worked out well, making sure we managed the feedback loops. So everyone is incentivized in the right sort of ways. We didn't take assumptions, and we tried to stay as agile as possible. We moved back to Florida after demo day instead of staying out in Silicon Valley. And what I didn't realize until after joining YC as a partner was what made us unique at Wufoo was that we were incredibly disciplined. We didn't go back to Florida, and even though we were one of the best startups out there in Florida, go out there and rest on our laurels and try to build up a startup scene or anything. We said, we're here to work, right? And we only get one shot at this, and I'll be damned if I ever have to go back to a cubicle again. So that was the philosophy.
Do you think that mentality is, so you said that even then you were kind of rare. Do you think that mentality is even more rare nowadays? Now that we have, this kind of idea of a startup culture, and we see so many success stories of unicorns and double unicorns and pixies, do you think that it's becoming a thing where people are really just chasing that scale and want, the excess in a sense?
I don't know. Here's the thing. Yes, there's a lot more money out there in Silicon Valley and also, let's say, in China. And so it's easy to see easy money raised as that can continue on forever. But it's first piece of advice that we give to people after they finish demo day at YC is demo day is this thing that we have that gets people to move in a way that they don't often do. And demo day money that you raise will be the easiest money that you will raise. After that, you hit the real world and you can't expect that. And just because you can raise money doesn't mean you're going to be a successful company. There are plenty of companies that did crappy at demo day and end up being awesome later on. Zenefits is an example. Teespring is an example. And those guys are going to be incredible powerhouses. And so the trick is to remember there's basic fundamental values that got you to wherever you are. And so how good are you going to be at remembering those, right? And how bad are you going to be at looking at money and to try to buy yourself out of trying to find shortcuts? There are no shortcuts. And so if you can just remember that helps the long distance. A lot of people think oh, I raised a ton of money, everything is going to be easier now. And it should never feel that way. The startup should be consistently hard all the way through. And the great founders are the ones who say the startup never got easier, no matter how we sort of did, but we figured out how to be disciplined throughout the whole process and made it work.
So speaking of values, is that the reason why you chose SurveyMonkey to sell your company to them? Was it an issue of shared values? Because, as you said, you're profitable. You'd already spurned several offers. There was, from the outside looking in, I of course wasn't there. From the outside looking in, it seemed like you could just kind of continue with this 10, maybe goes to 15-person operation, no problem for a very, very long time. So why even bother selling at all?
Yeah, so one is SurveyMonkey gave us a great offer. So they had been pursuing us for almost like 2 years when we finally agreed to finally meet with them. And I think what ended up happening is they showed us the numbers and all that stuff, and it looked exactly like Wufoo's growth curve, except for like 5 years into the future, right? Because they're just 5 years older than us. And it was really clear like what the path was going to be. And we had gotten Wufoo to the point where we're like, oh, okay, everything's going really great right now, but to actually take Wufoo to the next level, we'd have to make some other changes to the company that we quite honestly were not that interested in doing. And so SurveyMonkey proposed this opportunity for us to like sort of leapfrog that, like take it to a different sort of scale and do all this different stuff that we weren't interested in. For example, like internationalization, add different payment processors, all this stuff that like made sense business-wide, but didn't excite us as a product or company-wise, right? And then also like the deal was really awesome. And then when we met the SurveyMonkey team, all their values and stuff sort of meshed, and we knew that our employees were going to be in a good place with them. And
so is that the sort of thing that
Dave Goldberg was great, quite honestly. And so like so sorry to hear like sort of what happened to him and his family like recently on here, but like he's probably one of the primary reasons why bringing us on and pitching us this vision, and every promise that he gave to us before the acquisition, he kept all the way through. And I feel like I have one of those rare circumstances where like we had an acquisition that went by the book, right? And it's the one that anybody would dream for that sort of happened. And, you know, I think we were super lucky in that respect that we found a good home for Wufoo in that way. And then the founders got to work on and do some other things as a result.
Yeah, he made a good home for a lot of people. So that sort of partnership, that's what, say, if someone in this audience is thinking of selling their company, that's the sort of thing that they should be looking for too, right?
It's ideal if you can find that, but 99% of the time, having seen so many other deals and founders go through that, it's not what's going to happen to you. What's usually going to happen is like you have no control. Unless you have the promises put in writing for the acquisition, you shouldn't expect anything to be fulfilled. And more often than not, the product dies.
So let's finish on an up note.
I love companies that want to run forever, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're in a position to do that where you can run the company forever, then that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to do everything I can to discourage you. Like, if I had the choice, again, I would love to, like, have kept running Wufoo. But there's also not just me making that decision. I had other two co-founders that I never would have started a company unless I met them. Although if I hadn't met them, I'd be like teaching art to hippies in like college. So that's a very different life.
You'd be like a really good professor. I think people would take that course.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, as a professor, I don't know, your students now in YC seem to like you. I have a quote here. This is what I want to end on just because it shows that Kevin is a very, very smart, very dedicated man. One of your recent graduates said, I have to also thank Kevin Hale for all those meetings when he would kick our ass and make me want to tear my eyelashes off my face. Literally. Every time I'd walk away from a meeting with this guy, I'd find myself agitated. And that discomfort was a good thing. It helped us push the boundaries rather than stay in our comfort zone. If you can survive Kevin Hale, you can survive pretty much anything. So you guys should all apply to YC and see if you can survive Kevin Hale.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much for coming, Kevin. We had a really
my
great
pleasure.
time.
Thank you so much.